Now, just to tell you about breakfast and the going forward, I'll take a look here at the view over at Whistler Mountain and Green Lake. You get another clearing up ahead. Now, tomorrow you do dinner, but then we also have in Jasper, the breakfast there is at the hotel, so it's a bit more selection. It's a lot better selection. Then we have Lake Louise, which is a pretty wide selection, and then Banff, that hotel there has a really good selection of food as well. Then you get on the Rocky Mountaineer, and this is kind of the entrance of the by late June, sometimes into July. But even if they get some rain down here and they get a cold pocket of air, you can get it falling as fresh snow up high above. So it looks nice, eh? The mist kind of rising up above the lake and all that.
Watch your step.
Oh, you weren't watching where you're going?
I just charge my back.
That'll get you back good. Yeah.
Yeah, that backpack has some extra stuff.
Nice. Not you, Frank.
on this road. You get some smaller ones that happen that might temporarily close the road, like is. These valleys and rig out kind of like sponges when you rig on a sponge, and then any clouds that pass over or through, there's not much precipitation left in them. So we're going to Lillooet. Between Lillooet and Cache Creek, we'll come out of the coastal mountain range and we'll come on to the Thompson Plateau. But first, yeah, we have quite a spectacular descent over here. But the last few years they have had forest fires, which any trees you do see on the other side of the above the town of Lillooet. A couple times they had forest fires. And last year, later on today, after we leave Lillooet, you'll see the one road which they closed to commercial vehicles for part of the season last year. So that cut off the town a little bit. The town definitely suffered from that. You know, you would have cars coming through and, you know, groups of bikies. Like last time we were here, there was a... Yeah, later today we'll do a stop at a lookout at another lake. So in this part of the province, huge lakes, but like I said, this one's a reservoir. So BC Hydro. In Canada, Quebec actually generates the most hydroelectric power, and then BC second, and we export a lot of it as well. And there's a whole number.
Don't pack too much tonight. Yeah, no, this is. Can you read that?
Yeah.
Something happened.
All right.
is tourists taking photos of the river on the bridge, not on the sidewalk. Huh? Yeah.
It's all made with the boat, just put it in. The trailers down there. Just disappear.
Okay.
This place to,
No, this is fresh water. Fresh water. Okay, so that's the Fraser River. And again, we'll show you the beginning, close to the beginning of it.
Ferry journey to the Isle of Mull. We're going to visit Clark Castle, the ancestral home of Clan MacLeod. We then return to our hotel for some whiskey tasting. Day 3, we visit Neptune's Staircase, part of the Caledonian Canal. Then a cruise on Loch Lilly to see salmon farm, perhaps if we're lucky some basking seals. Day 5, steam train from Fort William up to Malling. We then carry on our journey, making our way to...
Then we move on from there on a couple of little trains through some beautiful scenery. We spend a couple of nights in Geiranger. Full day there, we have a tour on the field. From Geiranger, we travel further down over mountains again by coach, and we end up in Flum. Flum, we will take hills, forests, lakes, wonderful fields, water is absolutely superb. The thing about it is we're covering a vast amount of ground, and we're going quite far north.
Posts from the Great Lakes to North Dakota. In 10 months, he covered 4,000 miles. On that journey, Thompson took the first accurate longitude of an important Mandan Village trading center in North Dakota. He interviewed elders, gathering important tribal knowledge about the Upper Missouri.
He's combining tribal information on this map of Thompson, and it's now in our Library of Congress. The 2 notes that Jefferson writes on there are Mr. Thompson's longitude for these villages is, and he knows that's important, and that is where Lewis and Clark end up spending their first winter. It's the perfect stopping point. And then he always travels with women, and he is depending on them, and he has a mixed blood wife just like everybody else does.
My lovely wife is of the blood of these people, speaking their language and well educated in the English language, which gives me a great advantage.
The traders always recognized that these connections were important, that they...
So what that is, it's pulp and paper mill. Yeah, it's an exhaust pulp. But they get bushfires quite often here. You know, a very harsh temperature. Very rugged. The South Thompson we're going to follow on the Rocky Mountain here, they meet at Kamloops. And then Kamloops literally means meeting of the waters in the local Shuswap First Nation language. Then the lake starts. Just past Kamloops, the lake starts, so the river slows down, and it's very cold. It's frigid to swim in. And it's not easy to access because the rail lines own the land on either side. There's a First Nation settlement on the other side as well. So there's not a lot of recreational activity here, considering how big a lake it is. But it's carved out by glacial ice, so it's at its deepest point 400 feet deep. So that's a lot of fresh water, right? That's a lot of snow melt, glacial melt, rainwater, all collecting here in one place. So the salmon will come from the Pacific Ocean up the Fraser River. And then at the Fraser River, they'll split, right? So the Fraser River is over that way, right? It's split and it met the Thompson, which is another very large salmon-bearing river. So they'll swim all the way up, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, probably close to 1,000, to find the original stream where they were originally born, right? So they'll be born, they'll spend some time here, they'll come up to open ocean for 3 to 5 years, and then come all the way back, and then when they return, they'll die. So once they've fertilized and spawned, then they'll die. So the life cycle. That tells you how many millions and millions of salmon would have to return, right? Or would have to even be born to have millions returning, right? So they'll talk a little bit about it on the plane. I won't repeat your commentary. What that area is, see the area with the green down there? That's a golf course, residential. Go running up about Peter and Paul. And he would run up the goat trails. He said it was a little bit loose rock and sagebrush would cut your hands if you grab at it. But if you could run up and down in an hour, I mean. Okay, this area over here is part of the Shwepum tribe. So they have a big roundhouse, so they have performances and ceremonies and all of that. And that building on the right, that's the old residential school. So it's a very kind of dark history in Canada. And there's a museum there of it when they talk about the experiences of the First Nations here in Canada, which I didn't even know about until after I graduated, right? Because it's a dark history. So what they would do is they would take a lot of these First Nations away from their families and attempt to assimilate them. You know, because their language and their methods were seen as savage, and they
Recognize the potential of the hot springs, making them the foundation of its Western tourism empire. In the late 19th century, the taking of the waters was all the rage among the well-heeled in Europe and Eastern North America. Naturally, the allure of the curative powers of these waters in the wilds of Canada could only be considered all the more appealing. The hotel was simply too small. Architect Walter Painter was commissioned to conceive of an even grander design. And the famous fossiliferous Tyndall stone was shipped from Manitoba for fireplaces and stairways.